So one of the things that I personally didn't know before starting birth control was that the pill is going to shut down my estrogen production. And the synthetic estrogen in the pill is like 10 times more potent than my natural estrogen. This can lead to estrogen dominance, making it really hard to lose weight.
Doctor said you got PCOS. Now go on, girl, just lose some weight. Till I took the symptoms into my own hands and reversed them naturally. So I became a dietitian to help my sisters feel the best they've ever felt. Take a step in my direction if you wanna prove them wrong and take control of yourself. Join a sister and a
So I hope everyone enjoyed the Instagram stories we posted in Paris.
Yeah, we didn't talk too much about it in the last episode, but it was a really fun trip.
Yeah.
And what was your favorite part about it?
My favorite part was, I think it was the baking class.
Oh.
Because something really funny
crazy.
happened
Yeah,
afterwards. So we had this macaron baking class. And it was so much fun. We learned how to make macarons, which are gluten-free French cookies.
Dairy-free? Wait, dairy-free?
I don't know if the filling is dairy-free. There's chocolate, which probably has milk in it. But it was gluten-free. And one of the interesting things I learned about macarons is that it like dates back to the early 1800s. And they would make this like back then. It's like one of the first like French pastries. And it's made with almond flour. And I think it's really impressive because it's a very complicated cookie to make, especially if you don't have a KitchenAid. So like, I don't know what these people were doing back then, but it probably took them forever all day to make these macaron cookies. They're very difficult to make. But we had so much fun in that class. And then afterwards, a fellow classmate took a picture of us.
Yeah, we went outside the class, and before we left, we're like, oh, let's take a selfie. And then somebody said, oh, you want me to take a picture? From the class, came up and said, you want me to take a picture of you guys?
We're like, sure.
Yeah.
And then the next week, you know, we came back home, we're home. And we get a DM and she's like, oh my God, I have PCOS. And I went and my friend sent me your account and I realized that I literally met you last week at the macaron class.
And I took your picture.
It's crazy. It was crazy.
Can you guys imagine that? Isn't that crazy? What a world it's a simulation. This is a simulation.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's the universe playing tricks on us.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
What was your favorite part?
I think my favorite part was Crazy Horse. And for anyone who doesn't know what this is actually a famous cabaret show that dates back to the 1950s in Paris. Now you're going to think, oh yeah, of course, a guy, you like a if you don't know what a cabaret show is, basically topless women dancing.
Yeah.
But in a very classy way.
It was classy.
But hold on. It has nothing to do with the women. That's not, before you turn off this episode and yell in Sacre Bleu, that's not why I actually enjoyed it. I enjoyed it because of the men. That's right. There was two male performers from which I learned they're new. One is these twins or these brothers who are tap dancers. Mm-hmm. These guys danced for like 10 minutes straight.
They were pouring sweat
as part of the hour-long show. And they were like amazing, hilarious, so entertaining. And then there was also another guy later on who was like, he made this whole funny skit. Obviously he's dancing, but doing this entire, they were the MVPs of the show. He was like mocking
the girls.
I forgot that they were even topless women.
I know.
I was even looking at them.
At first you're shocked because you're like, oh my God, boobs in my face. But then like after 10 minutes and like, you know, and it's just
boobs in your face gets pretty old after 10 minutes.
You forget. You actually forget.
No, but they were really like talented. They were dancing very well. Like, I don't think the point is to be like, oh, it's like there's boobs out. It's more like they're very talented women and they know like
very talented.
And they're like dancing very well.
Yeah.
And I think it's
not just anyone can work at Crazy Horse, you know, because there's actually a list on the wall of all the people who have danced at Crazy Horse since like 1950. And let me tell you, it's not like a huge long list. Like you need to be creme de la creme.
Yeah, exactly. They were like very talented and very entertaining. So it was a really good show. Highly recommend. If you go to Paris, check out the Crazy Horse show.
Yes.
Okay, now that
we've shared two, one was PG and one was PG-13. Two of the things we loved about Paris.
Should we talk about birth control?
Okay. So this episode is about why we are shoved birth control with PCOS and what we should do about it and the things we need to know if we want to take it or if we don't want to take it. Personally, when I was shoved birth control, I didn't know one single thing about PCOS. I didn't know one single connection that it might have with my lifestyle or diet. I didn't know about inositol. I didn't know about any supplements that could possibly have helped me or any lifestyle changes I could have made. And my gynecologist was like, here, birth control is the only solution. And I begged her, like, what should I do? What does this mean? Like, what is PCOS? She didn't explain anything. And I just think this is a really irresponsible way to give someone birth control. Now, I'm not judging anyone who takes it because it can certainly help with symptoms. And like, why should you suffer if like that's something you want to do? That's definitely your choice. But many of us are handed birth control the same way that I was at a young, impressionable age of 18 or 16 years old. And then we stay on it for years. I'm so passionate about this, you guys. Seriously, we stay on it for like 10, 12 years until we finally decide like, okay, I think I want to have babies now. And we have no idea, we have no concept of our own fertility, our cycle, of anything that could possibly be affecting it because we've masked all of our hormonal fluctuations with birth control, and especially during the prime early 20s when we're building bone density. I mean, it's affecting that, and no one is telling us. So I just think it is a huge problem. Huge.
Oh, yeah, so this episode is for you if you're considering getting on birth control for your symptoms, if you're planning on getting off of birth control, we're here to help. As you can tell from Talian's passionate intro, we feel the exact same way about this because so many women aren't told about what birth control is. We also want to put a disclaimer here as well. This episode is not meant for anyone to tell them to get off of birth control or to think about not taking birth control. Please go with the advice of your doctor. And if you do choose to do anything, speak to your doctor first.
Yeah. So here are a few of the reasons why we're given birth control immediately when we go to the gynecologist's office and complain about our PCOS symptoms. Now, the first most common reason is because we're missing our period or our period is very irregular. So many of us have this issue, especially in early years, like 16 years old or 17 years old. And, little do we realize, and little do our doctors tell us, that it's pretty normal to have irregular periods at that young age, and you don't actually have to take birth control for that. And so that's how a lot of us end up taking birth control at such a young age. I know my sister, myself, all of my friends, like we were just really young. We had irregular periods. We went to the doctor, birth control. There's a lot of other things that could have been told to us instead. And then the second really common reason is because we have PCOS symptoms. And so those PCOS symptoms, the struggle is real. I get it. The acne, the hair loss, the mood swings. And so birth control sometimes can mask those PCOS symptoms by turning off your hormones because birth control is synthetic hormones. It's basically a cocktail of synthetic hormones that kind of turn off your receptor sites and just do the talking for you.
Yeah, I think most people think that it's just going to quote unquote balance your hormones, but it's actually more so a synthetic hormonal cocktail that
it's not balancing
covers up
covering
those imbalances.
Exactly. So that's the second very common reason we're given birth control. And the third reason is because we may want to avoid getting pregnant. And of course, birth control is an option, but oftentimes, our doctor doesn't sit there and give us a little lecture about our other options like cycle syncing and understanding our fertile window and just understanding our fertility in general and how to avoid getting pregnant certain times of the month. This isn't a conversation that we have with our doctors. So that's, maybe some people would prefer that instead of birth control and maybe not.
But also it's important to keep in mind too, if you take birth control for a very long period of time, and let's say when you want to get pregnant, it can make it, a little bit more difficult to get pregnant once you get off because it takes time for your body to sync back its hormones back to its to a natural state. It doesn't mean that it's going to make it harder to get pregnant or anything like that. It's just that there may be an adjustment period
take a minute
when you get off of birth control, which is why it's important to know that so you get off of birth control in time to give your body time, right?
Right. So what does birth control do? That is the question. Birth control, it stops you from ovulating. If you don't ovulate, you don't have your natural hormonal fluctuations throughout the month. Therefore, you don't have period problems. You don't get pregnant. You're just turning off the whole machine. Okay? That's the best way to put it. But those natural hormonal fluctuations that happen each month, they help your body produce sex hormones that are not only necessary for fertility. So it's okay if you don't want to get fertile or if you don't want to have a baby, but they're also necessary for your mood, your libido, your bone health, your brain health. It has other functions other than fertility. So when you turn it off, you're going to affect that as well, your bone density and everything. That bleeding you experience during the days you take the placebo pills, it's not a real period. So sometimes you're giving birth control thinking that it's going to start your period. Well, yes, you're bleeding. It's called a withdrawal bleed, but it only occurs because your hormone levels drop enough to cause your uterine lining to shed. Keep in mind, you're skipping over all of the other things that happen during your cycle because of the synthetic hormonal cocktail of birth control. You're skipping over the part where you have high progesterone or high estrogen. That delicate dance of your hormones is being completely skipped over. And so it's not a real cycle. But yes, you are bleeding and you are shedding your uterus. So because you're not getting a real cycle and birth control is suppressing the function of your hormones, your androgen levels go down. And so for someone with PCOS, that's such a relief because you have facial hair, acne, hair loss, and having lower androgen levels can help with that. So taking birth control, sometimes can help with those symptoms. And it can be such a relief. However, it's really important to remember that birth control isn't addressing the root cause of PCOS. It's not reversing your PCOS. It's putting a Band-Aid on it, which can be helpful sometimes. But while you have that Band-Aid on, there's a lot you can do to keep your hormones in balance. And when you decide to have an exit plan and get off of birth control, to help so that it's not as, you don't bounce back into having lots of PCOS symptoms.
That was very well said. Let's go into things that everyone should know before starting birth control.
Yes. Do you know what the most researched supplement for PCOS is?
Yes, inositol.
But do you know that not all inositols are the same?
Hush your mouth.
The latest research on PCOS women uses inositol with a ratio of 40:1 myo and D-chiroinositol with a daily dosage of 4,000 milligrams.
Well, I declare.
But here's the problem. A lot of inositols out there do not use the 40:1 ratio, and many do not have a daily dosage of 4,000 milligrams. So that 1 month supply of inositol you bought may last half the time if you take the clinical dosage.
Heavens to Betsy.
Well, hold your horses, cowboy. That's why I love Ovasitol. It comes in a ratio of 40:1 myo and D-chiroinositol, and it provides a daily dosage of 4,000 milligrams. It also comes in a 3-month supply. And best of all, it's the only NSF certified 40:1 inositol, so you know that it's been third-party tested for purity and accuracy.
Well, butter my backside and call me a biscuit.
Head over to ovafit.org to order your Ovasitol today with our special 15% off promo. You can also find the link in the show description.
Well, I declare.
Okay, that's enough.
Thank God, I'm out of phrases.
So one of the things that I personally didn't know before starting birth control was that the pill is going to shut down my estrogen production. And the synthetic estrogen in the pill is like 10 times more potent than my natural estrogen. This can lead to estrogen dominance, making it really hard to lose weight. So some people, they don't lose weight on birth control, or they find that they gain weight in their hips and thighs. And this is because of the estrogenic effect of birth control. Birth control can also affect your anxiety and depression. And the reason why is because it depletes vitamin B6. And so that messes with tryptophan within your brain, which is necessary for serotonin production. That's the happy neurotransmitter.
Yeah, and the next one's really interesting because, this is all very interesting, but birth control increases insulin resistance by almost 50%, which is interesting because women with PCOS are already insulin resistant, so this may be counterproductive to the whole long-term management of PCOS. So once you're off the pill, you may be even more insulin resistance, which can contribute to weight gain and making it harder to get your period back naturally. Of course, that may not be the case for everyone, but it's interesting how it can already naturally make you more insulin resistant.
Right. And it's interesting because, like I mentioned earlier, while you're on birth control, you can do stuff that can prevent that insulin resistance from being worse once you get off of birth control so that you don't gain more weight. So changing your diet, your lifestyle, even if you decide to take the pill, can be very helpful. And fourth thing that you should know before you take the pill is that being on the pill is going to shut your entire reproductive system down and make your brain stop talking to your ovaries so that you don't ovulate. And sometimes afterwards, after you get off the pill, it's hard to restart that communication between your brain and your ovaries when you get off of birth control. And that's not everyone. Some people can get pregnant right after they get off the pill, but some people have difficulty, and that's why.
Yes. And let's go into what we recommend before stopping the pill cold turkey. And again, I want to mention this is not a recommendation to stop taking birth control. If you do think it's right for you, you should speak with your doctor or physician and see what the best route is for you. But before we do start that, let's go to the wins of the week. These are fellow sisters who are reversing their PCOS symptoms one step at a time. Our first win is from Megan.
Megan from the Sisterhood says, I wanted to share my recent wins because I'm motivated when I read everyone else's. I've been dairy-free, gluten-free, taking Ovasitol for 3 months, and now I'm down 10 pounds, went off birth control and got my period on time, and more importantly, pain-free.
Nice.
No more upset stomach or bloating on the regular. My digestive issues were so bad. I had a colonoscopy to see if something was serious. Thankfully, it wasn't. My anxiety is way down. I have way more energy. I have better sleep. I can't believe the results I'm experiencing. It helps reading everyone else's experiences in the sisterhood too, because knowing I'm not alone and this isn't in my head or something makes me feel so much better. It motivates me to keep going, and honestly, the dietary changes haven't been that difficult. This coming from someone who loves cheese and bread. I've been on so many diets. Nothing has ever felt this easy and natural, and while I may have lost weight faster with other methods, I also felt deprived and like it wasn't sustainable. But I don't feel that way right now. I feel hopeful.
It's amazing. Great job, Megan.
Congrats, Megan.
And she even mentions in her message she went off of birth control and was still able to get her period on time, and more importantly, was pain-free. So that's really great to hear how her birth control transition went.
Yes.
Our next one is from Emily. From the Sisterhood. She says, I'm so excited to share. I've been on birth control for years and metformin and everything in between. Last year, I got off everything, and for the last 5 to 6 months, I've been taking Ovasitol and being more mindful of what I'm eating. And today, I started my period. I haven't had a natural period in over 5 years. Not sure how long it will last, but it's definitely progress and means my body is trying to regulate hormones. Definitely. She says, I definitely did not think I would be able to get a natural period, but here we are, and I'm so happy.
Congratulations. That's amazing. I love hearing that you're getting your period back, getting it regular, taking the right steps to manage your hormone health. Many of us don't realize that you can do these things, because we're just shoved birth control.
Yeah, I mean, she mentioned that she didn't get a natural period for over 5 years, so it's totally possible to still get your period back naturally with some just,
some lifestyle changes.
Yes, exactly.
And speaking of which, let's get into things that you can do before stopping the pill or even after stopping the pill to help with your hormonal imbalances. As you know, women with PCOS, we are prone to having intense PCOS symptoms like irregular periods, acne, hair loss, weight gain, and mood swings. And so one of the things that can really help that I really wish that doctors recommended before birth control is taking inositol at a 40-to-1 ratio. We have the Ovasitol supplement, which is just that. And studies have shown that taking myo and dechironinositol at a 40-to-1 ratio for women with PCOS can help with all of our symptoms, specifically regulating our periods. So if you're really struggling with your period health, this is something that can help instead of a synthetic hormone and cocktail like birth control. But if you're on birth control, you can still take Ovasitol. And eventually, if you decide to get off birth control, it's great because you're really managing insulin resistance by taking Ovasitol. And as we mentioned earlier, birth control makes you more insulin resistant.
And also, we talked about that birth control can cause certain vitamins to be depleted. That's right. And some of those are the B6 vitamins. So it's basically a really good idea. Also, metformin can do the same thing to B vitamins, but it's really good to take a multivitamin that has a good dose of those B vitamins. So that way you're able to replenish that. And as you're getting off of birth control, your B vitamin levels are good.
Yes. Now, the third thing that I highly recommend is to reduce your chronic inflammation. So, whether you're on birth control or not, birth control is not going to help with this PCOS symptom. It's chronic inflammation. And one of the things that helped me the most was going gluten and dairy free. You can try it for 30 days, see how you feel, see if it affects your PCOS symptoms, your gut health, your mood, because PCOS is an inflammatory condition. And whether we mask our symptoms with birth control or not, we have chronic inflammation, and eating inflammatory foods like gluten and dairy can really make it worse.
Especially when it comes to gluten, it's like there's so much more and more gluten sensitivity, and people really think it's having to do more so now with like the amount of pesticides and like all this stuff that's going into gluten products that's at the farms and stuff, just because of like overproduction.
Yeah.
So
the amount of gluten now in wheat, because gluten is the protein in wheat.
Yeah.
The amount of gluten in wheat now is so much more. Maybe because they're trying to make products chewier and more palatable and more delicious and genetically modifying it so that we eat more of it.
Yeah.
But that's affecting our gut and our ability to break it down. And that can create chronic inflammation for many people.
And then lastly, there's of course many layers to this. But one of the main things we would highly recommend is to try to avoid or reduce sugar and alcohol for several months after getting off the pill, specifically for your liver's sake. Because when it comes to getting off the pill, it can be incredibly hard on your liver because the liver processes estrogen for removal and detox from the body. So because of that, the liver is going through a lot. And if you were to have a lot of alcohol during that time, it's going to basically put your liver into hyperdrive, and that's where kind of things like liver disease, which is prevalent with PCOS women, can happen.
Yeah, many of us have insulin resistance, which leads to fatty liver and drinking.
Or fatty liver,
Yeah, well, and then that leads to liver disease, and so it's important to take it seriously and try to avoid the things that can perpetuate that.
Yes.
So that's all the tips I got for you.
Yeah,
I have so many. This episode would never end.
Yeah, and kind of like a bonus tip too, like remember that your PCOS journey is unique, and it's a really good idea that when you're getting off of birth control, that you do some sort of a lab panel or a test panel to see what the state of your current hormones are, so you can focus on those. And getting one done every 3 months to 6 months, especially after getting off of birth control, can be really ideal to see the direction that your body is going in.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, sisters, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Until next time, we will chat with you again, keep you updated on our house and any upcoming spontaneous trips we decide to take. We'll keep you posted.
Yes, coming soon, video podcast from the new place.
Yeah, can't wait.
Take care, everybody. See you soon.
Bye. Hey sisters, just wanted to let you know that all of our podcast episodes have corresponding blog posts that dive deeper into each topic. So head over to PCOSweightloss.org/blog.
Is it slash or is it backslash blog?
I don't know.
I've always heard one or the other.
It's /.
Or slash? Just in case, you can also go to PCOSweightloss.org.